It's 5:30 PM. We'll call this meeting of the Public Works and Highway Committee to order. Attendance shows that all committee members are present. I will entertain approval of the minutes from the 7th of February.
I will second.
Any changes on the minutes? Any comments? No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, we'll go to public comment. Anybody out in the public who would like to speak for 3 minutes, please come up to the podium, state your name, present your slip. Have an annual slip that you don't have to keep filling.
Yeah, this is my pass. Can buzz me in. So, all right. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. So I have a couple of different questions. And the first question I have is, there are quite a few deer carcasses rotting around the streets. And I was wondering who's responsible for those. So if that could be addressed,
I was
I'm
gonna
sure the
ask Matt that.
county.
But it's not on the agenda, but
Yeah, so there's like, you can see the ribs, so it's getting past time. Okay, so a question, and you don't understand the history of this, but is this wheel loader last year's stump grinder? Last year, there was a debate about whether we actually really needed a new stump grinder, and it turned out that it could be rented and used periodically for a lot less than purchasing the unit. So when you have that discussion, could you please go into, does it have to be replaced this year? How often does it get used? Blah, blah, what's it for, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. So the next thing is, about your report. So I really like your report and the fact that you've got it here. And what I would like to see added, if that's possible, is the source of funding, whether it's an account line, or if it's part of a TID, or if it's capital funding, or if it's budget, whatever. I think that would be helpful, because one of the things we asked for last year was a 5-year look for all of the dollars and projected dollars for maintenance for all of the things to do with public works, roads, blah, blah, blah. So that we could take that at budget time and also add in the projections for the water rate increases, the sewer rate increases, any other debt regarding other projects, so that we could get a snapshot of what it looks like for a typical house's taxes. And if you're in the green zone, if you're not in the green zone, what that looks like. So that's why I'm asking for that. Also, it helps clarifying things. There's a lot of work that's been done with this new Tyler Munis. We are barely even starting to scratch the surface of getting to good reporting within that system. And so now's a good time to start designing reports that are useful for the entire board, from a budgeting standpoint, for the general public to be able to understand where finances are, and just to have good fiscal responsibility about our reporting. So that's my request, and I'm not asking for it for next week or anything like that, but if you would work towards that, that would be great. I want to come out once more and say that I am concerned about the current rate of expenditures with the way the economy is. I think that we need to wait before we spend more money until we find out what happens with the public safety referendum, if it passes or not, especially when in regards to extending TID 7 and 8. I think would be irresponsible to do it before that and to commit to that. I also think that maybe we should step back a little bit and think differently about the extension. What if you took 50% of the revenue now? Okay. And then this is the last point, 50% of the revenue, and everyone got the 50%, and you left the other 50% in the TIDS extended so that you took that towards half of the $7 million worth of projects or whatever it is. So I think we tend to think all or nothing. I don't think that's what we need to do. We can be more creative about the way this is thought through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come forward for their 3 minutes?
Something quick. Well, I say that now. I'll fill this out. Good evening. I just have one or two comments. I just wanted to make sure that this board, this committee was aware that we had a resident in District 4 come forward at the village board meeting and ask that the brush pickup be moved up to April rather than June. So I wanted to bring that forward here, just reiterate that and just see if you can make that plan work. I thought it made sense myself because there was so much damage during the winter, and I didn't know if that person was going to be here tonight, and they are not. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is I have, it's just me, but maybe it's other people too. I have a problem with blanket POs. At least, I think I didn't get time to dig into the other part of the explanation for each one of these, but there should be a cap on it. And I know you're trying to be efficient, and if something falls apart, then you can go into that line item and then pull it. I get that. But I think it should be line item and a max put on there. I think it just makes good sense. And I would echo the same sentiment about the wheel loader. I don't want it, I want to make sure it's purposeful, and I know it's 24 years old, but can we wait another year? It was like about $120,000, and that's what was cut for the library and for the park and rec. So when I see something like that, I just want to make sure it's makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. We'll move on to new business, A, 2024 articulating wheel loader purchase.
So the Parks Department had a capital budget of $120,000 allocated for the purchase of a compact articulating wheel loader. As the notes say, this is replacing a skid loader that's been in the fleet for 24 years. And after staff evaluated the skid loader versus alternative options, they decided that this wheel loader would be a more appropriate use for the parks going forward. So we kind of focused in on a CAT model 906 compact wheel loader and got bids from 3 CAT dealerships. Fabit Cat Milwaukee was the low bid at $119,100, and we are recommending that this purchase be awarded to them. And then just to address some of the comments that came up earlier, this is a really integral and important piece of equipment for operating in parks. And I don't have the hour meter in front of me to tell you exactly how much it's been used, but it is a heavily used piece of equipment and it's very important to the operation. And based on the age, 24 years, that's a long time to hang on to something. And every year you hold on to that, you're increasingly likely to encounter major mechanical problems that you'll have to pay for anyway. And delaying the purchase of something that's already budgeted is just going to cost you more down the road too. So I would recommend holding course with this and awarding the purchase to Fabit Cat.
Matt, typically what is this used for, just so people understand?
Scott, you want to come up and talk about the uses?
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I can never remember. Red is on.
You're on.
Red is off,
Good.
yeah.
Wheel loader. Yeah, skid loader typically was used in the Parks Department This compact wheel loader is going to bring a little bit more function, I think, to our department as a whole, not only in parks, but also in the highway side. Couple things that we'll be able to do, all of our skid loader attachments will be able to hook up to it. So if we're working on catch basins or inlets or things like that on the highway end, we're out breaking curb, we'll be able to do those same functions here. We do own a snow bucket. So for snow removal purposes, we'll be able to use that in parking lots and different things. The new facility being on the other side of town and having the salt shed and then salt dome on this end of town. If we're ever in an operation where we're putting loaders out, clear cul-de-sacs, and we're short on loaders, this does have enough height capability to be able to load trucks, help out in that fashion as well. Again, that's why we went from a skid loader. It's going to perform a lot of those same functions, but then have other alternative options as well.
Thank you, Scott. Sounds like a very versatile piece of equipment. Committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a Caterpillar 906 compact articulating wheel loader from Fabricat in the amount not to exceed $119,000, $119,100.
Second, I had a question though.
Scott, Bob?
So Scott, just to reaffirm, you said that the existing attachments will fit this piece of equipment also?
Yes, we'll be able to hitch right into the same things that all the skid loaders hitch up to now. We have a universal attachment for the front. This will hitch right on.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Any more questions or comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to the 2024 Senior Center Exterior Painting Project.
So this was a budgeted project in 2024 as well. There was 23,000 budgeted for caulking and painting the exterior of the senior center. And this is just kind of a life cycle thing that we want to do in order to maintain the facility properly, excuse me. We sent out an RFP to 3 companies and received 2 bids back. Maycorp was the low bid at $21,198. That's about $1,800 under the budgeted amount, and we're recommending the award of the contract to them.
Okay, committee?
Make a-
Well, motion for.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Maycorp for the completion of the painting project for the amount not to exceed $21,198.
Second,
Any questions, comments?
That's a wild difference in bids.
It is, and I can't explain it very well because when we go to the next bid, the 2 companies are lined up very closely.
Okay.
So it may just be, again, workload and, you pay us $42,000, we'll move off of whatever we were doing and go ahead for you. But we've seen Maycorp now, looking back at the last meeting,
Yep.
come in pretty competitively on 3 projects. So I think, we're very hopeful that that'll be a good relationship and they're providing good quality for us. In addition to
thanks.
good pricing.
are they local? Maycorp? Never heard of them.
Maycorp is a division of Thomas A. Mason. Where their home office is, I couldn't tell you. But we do have a long relationship with them already, starting way back in the library. I mean, they've been painting for the village for years and they've done an excellent job. Real good to work with.
Okay, thanks.
Any more comments, questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to the next painting project, the Fireman's Park Band Shell.
All right, similar, this was a budgeted project of $30,000 in the 2024 Parks Department capital budget. We developed an RFP that included painting and media blasting, and we're adding that scope in order to address some deficiencies that have resulted in premature failure of the paint on the band shell. The hope is that with the media blasting and really giving that a good cleaning, that this paint will last the full expected life cycle. There's also an alternate item in the bid for painting door frames and railings, and that's essentially just to get the paint to match. the roof and column painting, and then the door frames and railings. So we sent out the RFP and again, got the same two companies actually to reply. Much closer bid this time, but Maycorp was still low at $32,063. That's including the alternate. I would note that that's just a little bit over the budget, but we do have that savings in the senior center painting that we would move in to cover the additional amount.
Okay. Committee, Bob?
So Matt, you indicate a deficiency which led to the premature failure. Is there any way we can recoup that from the whoever,
We could look back at the contracts, but I'm guessing, typical warranty on work is probably a year. That was 2017, 2018 when that was constructed. So it's probably difficult to go back that far and get something.
Do we know who did the painting then? It's not hopefully one of these companies.
There was a lot of discussion about this throughout the budget process as well. And I know Trustee Hudson had been out early on. Again, reminding everybody that this is again a donated building. And there was some question back and forth as to the preparation of the steel before it was painted. Was it sitting too long, so on and so forth. And I think just, again, with it being a donated building, it's really hard to go back. We tried having meetings and they didn't really get very far with Kiwanis being involved and so on and so forth. We didn't get a lot of traction. And again, here's our asset just continuing to deteriorate over time. The park having all of the activities that it does, we just don't want to see it get any further away from us, I think, is kind of the main point here.
Rick, you have anything? No?
Make a motion to approve the contract with Maycorp LLC to complete the painting project for the amount not to exceed $32,063.
second?
And they are a local company.
Okay.
Comments? Have something, Phil? No?
Just that they're a local company. They've been around for a while.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to D, acceptance of improvements, Kellertown 9. I should know what that means, but I don't.
The Keller development on Donjas Bay Road.
Oh, okay.
So they
Town.
extended sewer on their property. Work was performed by PTS, a company out of Green Bay. Sewer was inspected by the utility, and they found it to be in good condition through the line of the rate. They're recommending that we accept the improvements and begin the one-year warranty period.
Committee?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
More comments or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Now we're moving on to the series of blanket POs. And I think it's important for people to understand why we do this and why it gives us some efficiencies when it's something that we repetitively have to purchase every year. If you want to address that, Matt, and then we'll go into E, the Ferguson Waterworks.
Sure. So this is a lot like we did for the water utility last month. And basically what this allows us to do is set up a PO or a contract with a firm. So like with item E, it would be with Ferguson Waterworks, and it would be out of budgeted money for the types of materials and services that we would buy from these contracts. And it allows us to make easy purchases for as needed materials and services. So as an example, and we'll get into item E, but that's manhole repair materials. We need to be able to buy those up to a dollar threshold, and that is part of this item. So again, with item E, we're talking about not exceed $30,000. And it just allows us to operate efficiently, not buying too much, but having the ability to buy what we need when we need it.
And have it on hand when you need it, obviously.
Yep.
Okay, so we know what this one is. Committee, what do you? Phil?
So we do this every year, right? I mean,
Yep.
this is how we
This-
operate every single year.
This is an annual thing.
And what is the cost increase from last year to this year, please, if you know those numbers? Or is it identically the same?
In terms of what we are requesting,
Yeah, what did we ask for last year versus what we're asking for this year?
I don't have what we requested last year. I do have, so if you look at E, F, and G
Mhm.
together, they all come out of the same account. I have, in total, last year, we spent $91,000.
Perfect.
And this year we have budgeted 82,400.
Thank you.
Bob?
So I understand this is an annual thing. So typically we try to purchase just for the year.
Yes.
I know there's a.
Yeah, a lot of, like with item E and F and G, these are purchases that are made in conjunction with the road program as well. So as we're going through and doing the road improvements, we have materials to make the necessary adjustments to the other infrastructure.
Does it make sense on any of these items to maybe purchase for 2 years to recognize the cost savings? That would mean you'd have to have a
That's a-
place to save it or store it.
That's a possibility, but not this year because we're going to be moving.
Right.
And we're actually trying to kind of dwindle down our inventory so we don't have to move quite as much.
Yeah, maybe something to consider next
Yeah.
year.
That's assuming if these items don't change, right? I mean, it's what you buy next year will fit the year
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Okay.
in general, well.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve a blanket PO to Ferguson Waterworks for the amount not to exceed $30,000 for the purchase of miscellaneous manhole repair materials.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. The next blanket purchase order for Core and Main.
So with Core and Main, we're purchasing manhole adjusting rings, and that is product that's used in conjunction with the 2024 road projects and other areas needed throughout the system.
What is an adjusting ring?
Just height adjustment.
Just to make the big round thing not bouncy when you hit it with your tire, pretty much? Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, committee,
Motion to approve the blanket PO for Core and Main.
Second,
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. G, Adapter Inc., blanket PO.
All right, same thing here with Adapter Inc. We'd be purchasing manhole chimney seals and extensions. And that's also purchases that line up with road projects and then other operating needs throughout the system.
Committee,
I'll make a motion to approve a blanket PO to Adapter for the amount not to exceed $28,000 for the purchase of chimney seals and extensions.
Second.
discussion. Questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to blanket PO for Vision Sewer.
All right, with Visasewer, we're asking for not to exceed amount of $40,000 for manhole grouting to address I&I in manholes where needed.
Is this an annual thing too, then?
Yes.
The manhole grouting, okay.
Yep.
Committee? Bob?
So Matt, how many structures does this get us?
Well, this is just grouting, so it's repair.
Yeah, but I mean, how many repairs?
It's probably difficult to say depending on the scope of the repair and the time it takes to do it. It could vary.
Did we see the same amount last year?
I don't have numbers on last year, just because they were working through some things in Tyler Munis and I didn't have access to the numbers.
Mhm.
But it's something that I'm working on. Tim, I don't know if you have anything you want to add here.
Yeah, it's the same as last.
Is this, do we do this every year?
Been doing it every year.
You can, might as well come up. We'll have all kinds of questions for you
I knew
if you travel.
we could get them up here.
Shouldn't sit in the back.
So just like everybody else, there's a dwindling workforce in this trade. And it's getting harder and harder to get a contract out for grouting. So what I've been doing with Visu Sewer is bringing them in when they're in between jobs on a time and material basis, where we have a list of manholes that need grout, and they say, hey, we're in between, we got 2 days, we can come by you, do you have anything for us? And then, yep, here's the list, get them done. So this just allows us the flexibility. We have a time and material cost of $350 per hour at $10 a gallon per gallon of grout. So typical manhole, anywhere between 20 and 50 gallons of grout, depending on the severity of the leak, and 2 to 4 hours of, time to do the work.
How are you triaging these manholes? Just regular maintenance as your crews are going
Yeah,
around?
so we're required to inspect 20% of the system every year. And when we find a leak that we don't have the capability of sealing with a hot shot, that's when we bring in the outside contractor.
Okay, so there's a method to your madness.
Yeah, so typically a leak that's over, say, like 10 gallons a minute, we're not going to have the capability to get stopped.
Okay, thank you.
Very interesting. Go ahead. Jeff.
How far on the list are we, Tim? Do we keep up or do we
Yes,
slip
we
back?
have.
We good?
Last year, we had 4 manholes that were part of the road program that were leaking pretty bad. 2 of them were on Water Street, 2 of them were on Church Street. And there, we did a cementitious coating as well as the grout. The grout work got done last year, but they're coming back to finish the cementitious this spring. So we'll be all caught back up.
Okay.
We'll be starting a new list with our inspections from this year.
Thank you.
Just stay close, though. Okay, committee, do we have Bob, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, just to give me an idea of the condition of our overall system, what's the oldest manhole in this village?
1950s.
50s,
Not
okay.
many of them left.
And are those brick,
They're block,
block?
marble block.
Okay, everything else is monolithic, I assume. then?
Yeah, and a lot of those manholes, we've done some pretty intensive cementitious lining projects where we use strong seal.
Sure,
On Maple Road, we used a product called Monoform. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not
where
that
they
one.
form up a new manhole inside the existing. You lose 4 inches of, ID, but you get a new monolithic manhole within the manhole.
it's kind of like bath liners.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the blanket PO to Visual Sewer Clean and Seal for the amount not to exceed $40,000.
Second.
Further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Blanket PO for William Ride LLC.
Well, same idea with this one, not to exceed $20,000. This is lift station equipment service as needed. Last year, we spent approximately $44,000. This year, we have a budget of $51,500 in that account.
And we're using 20,000 here is what you're asking for.
Correct.
And we expect that to be enough? Yeah, okay. Committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the blanket PO for William Reed LLC for the amount not to exceed $20,000 for miscellaneous service on lift station equipment throughout the.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Quick question. What's an example of miscellaneous service on a lift
So
station?
anything my staff can't handle. So William Reed is a local company. They're out on Highway 145 by the existing DPW. They're a manufacturer's rep for wastewater treatment equipment, and they have a fully staffed service department. So when a repair, like a motor starter or something goes out and it's beyond the scope of what my staff can handle, that's when we bring them in. And this just allows me the flexibility to set up a contract in the new Tyler Munis billing system so that I don't have to keep coming back with purchase orders and getting quotes before the work gets done.
And most of these jobs, I would imagine, are very time sensitive
Yeah.
when something happens with water and sewer. Okay. Any more questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on, blanket PO for residential yard waste facility material processing.
So we're requesting a not to exceed amount of $30,400. As it indicates in the notes, that covers 8 days of wood and yard waste material processing at the facility. That includes labor, equipment, and trucking as needed. No, last year, we spent about $12,000. This year in that account, we have 33,800 budgeted, and this request is for 30,400.
And why so much more this year? Did I hear that correctly? It was 12,000 last year?
We always ask for the blanket to be higher in the event that we get a storm.
Okay,
We have to do an emergency brush pickup, or, you know, we open up the recycling center for extra hours due to storm damage.
gotcha.
This
Okay,
allows us to keep that material being processed without having to, you know, call a special meeting to, you know, get funds reallocated.
And with all of these, it's a not to exceed amounts, and we're only going to use what we need to use.
Sure.
The hope is that we don't have to go to those levels with all of these.
and as far as this material processing is concerned, is this everything you do on site? I mean, moving everything around, trying to get it
Moving everything around, we
to
do,
mulch and,
but this is to process the wood waste into mulch and to process the yard waste into compost.
okay.
At the end.
So it's everything you do,
Yep.
basically. Okay. Committee?
Last year was 8 days too also, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I
But
thought.
we didn't use the full 8 days.
Right, I understand, but it
Yep.
was, we budgeted for 8 days. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the blanket purchase order to is it Enricon for material processing for the residential yard waste facility for 2024 in the amount not to exceed $30,400.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Tim, I will mention to both of you that if we could have like an update on the facility, maybe at our next meeting, and that would cover things like if we have why we will or will not have an early brush pickup, why we have only one brush pickup, just kind of a refresher for everybody who's listening, that would be awesome. Does that make sense?
You can do that.
Yeah. And these questions that keep coming up, we just handle them all at once. Because I know there's good reasons why we don't do things. Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to award contract for Donjas Bay Reconstruction Project. From State Highway 145 to Wazaki Road to Vinton Construction, to Wazaki Road. And this is Vinton Construction of Two Rivers.
Yeah, so
Long title.
that is a long title, but very detailed.
Yes, it is.
So for the Donjas Bay reconstruction, we had a construction estimate of $3.4 million. The bids came in a range of just over 2.5 million to almost $3 million. Vinton Construction was the low bid for the project at the 2.5 million. In addition to the bid amount, we're requesting a 10% contingency for the total authorization to be $2,769,158. And then just a little bit about the project. This is, like it said in the title, from Fond du Lac to Wazaki. The first section from Fond du Lac to about Washington Drive is a mill and overlay. And then from that point east to Wazaki is a reconstruct. In addition to the road work, there's a box culvert replacement that will result in a road closure for the period of about a month. And a small section of water main relay as well.
This is kind of like the final phase, the final lap of getting all this done, isn't it, for the facility to open?
Yeah, this is, the Public Works facility is off of this section of road. So the idea is that we can line up the reconstruction of Donjas Bay with the opening of the Public Works facility.
Okay. Committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Donjas Bay reconstruction with Vinton Construction, including the 10% contingency for a total authorization of $2,769,158.
Second,
That is a significant decrease or savings out of the construction estimate. Was there any big reason? Is it material? Is it?
Yeah, it was material, and Grafe, who did the design and bidding for us, felt that it was possibly just a correction in the market that they felt was coming at some point here, and maybe we're realizing that.
Yeah.
that would be good news.
Yeah, that is a great savings. Okay, we have a motion. Oh, Bob, I'm
Good
sorry.
question. I think another point is to look at how close the bids were. You know, there weren't really, that tells you that the plans and specs were good. The contractors were able to, all of them interpreted it pretty much the same way. So having them that tight gives me a lot of comfort that it's a good bid. I think it's the same thing too. The market is catching up, you know, labor wise, and contractors are getting hungry again. So it's good for us.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to L, award of contract for construction management, construction inspection, and staking services of Dungeness Bay Road project.
So we're recommending the award to Grafe in the amount of $249,648. And we're doing that without additional proposals, and that's probably not the approach we'll take generally going forward, but I think there's some legitimate reasons to consider that with this project. One is that they did do the design, so I think it makes some sense for them to continue on just in that respect. But this is also closely tied in, like we mentioned in the previous item, with the opening of the Public Works facility. And Grafe is also doing inspection services for the Public Works facility, coordinating access to that site while construction continues, and having one company kind of on site there dealing with that, I think is important for us.
It makes sense to me. Committee? Bob?
I think also to point out, they're also doing construction staking out there. They'll have a survey crew out there.
Yep.
So it's not just the inspection, the physical monitoring of the construction. And also, their bid is about 10% of the construction costs, which is standard in the industry.
Okay, thank you for that. That's why we keep you here, Bob.
Thanks.
Well, we need a motion and we have more discussion.
I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for construction management, construction inspection, wow, and staking services for the Dungeness Bay Road project to Grafe on a time and materials basis in the amount not to exceed $249,648.
A second.
any further discussion?
So this one wasn't a bid. This is a time and materials.
No, this was a bid.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm thinking about the last one. No, this was just a proposal. Yep. Time and materials not to exceed.
okay.
Good with it?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? One abstention. Moving on to M, award contract to prepare conceptual designs for Division Road public information meetings in summer of 2024.
So with this one, I want to give you a little bit of background about what this includes and then get into the item. We talked about, it kind of came up with discussion or approval of our 2024 road program a couple months ago at Village Board. And the board at that time expressed interest in taking a closer look at Division Road and involving the community in that process. So we put together an RFP that included a couple items. It included a traffic analysis, and that includes cameras. So like in this case, cameras would be mounted in places where folks could see them. And they'd be used to conduct that analysis and the counts. It would include various conceptual drawings of different options that were available. When the road was reconstructed, it would involve 2 public information meetings and then the possible revision of drawings based on feedback that was obtained during that first meeting, as well as an online survey. So we put that RFP together and got these 4 proposals back. Kapoor for 199 hours and the amount of $30,980, and then all the way up to almost $100,000 for R.A. Smith. And that is a big range. But we felt pretty confident about Kapoor. They were really the only firm that took interest in really understanding the scope and were in communication with us when they developed their proposal. I don't think we wanted sort of the high-end, big dollar sort of study that R.A. Smith was proposing, and that what Kapoor had lined up in their proposal and demonstrated in that proposal that they have a lot of experience with, was really what we were looking for. So we are recommending that the contract be awarded to Kapoor for these services. I would also note that this project would be funded with ARPA dollars. So you'd be committing previously uncommitted ARPA dollars.
It sounds like really a very thorough RFP to get to this. I mean, very, very well thought out for the community to be involved in this. I really like that.
Yep.
Committee? Bill?
I have just an observation. The Kapoor and R.A. Smith is about the same on an hourly basis, and then the other two are substantially lower per hour. That's the observation, but the question I have to ask is do we, public meetings in June and July over the summer, I'm a little skeptical of
Attendance.
that, yeah. And I understand there's time sensitivity, and my concern is that we'll have a bunch of public meetings, nobody will show, and we'll pull our observations from that, and then we'll have a packed room telling us that we had no
public input.
No public input. Yeah, that's my only concern about the timeline.
Why do we have the timeline as it is? I guess is my first question, and then I'll have a comment on that.
Yeah, we set it up so that we could hopefully have results back and some additional information to inform next year's budgeting process.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there the possibility that they could jump into this and move through the timeline more quickly than we anticipate? It's possible. But yeah, that is kind of.
June, I don't have trouble with, but July, nobody's around. It seems to me anyway, when you try to get stuff done. But all of this too, if we're going to communicate in more than just the public session, it's going to be online, hopefully on the website, and we're going to be able to push it out maybe in some other ways as well, especially to the people who live along that corridor.
Yeah, we'll use, mechanisms that we have, our website, potentially some mailings, social media to get the word out about the public information sessions. I mentioned last time, and I don't have it officially scheduled yet, but I'm planning to do kind of a spring kickoff, talk about what's coming up in the village in terms of public works. And I'll include this in
That'd be
the
awesome.
discussion
Yeah.
as well. So we'll do our best to communicate with and get the word out there about it. And hopefully it is well attended. But there's also the online survey, as an option for folks that can't make it to the meeting.
Yeah, I understand the timing, but yeah, that road is in such bad shape. You hate to delay this if there's any possibility of getting this
It's a disaster.
done and not delaying it further.
I get it.
Yeah.
I just,
I don't think the time of year really matters. I mean, conceptual meetings or meetings to discuss conceptual concepts really doesn't excite the public that much. I think we have a lot of other tools for them to access, so for them to I'm just looking at the referendum, for example. How many people did we have for that?
Mhm.
2. So I wouldn't adjust the schedule just because we're holding public information meetings in the summer.
Okay, so do we have,
Don't. I'll make a motion to approve or award the contract to Kapoor and Associates of Milwaukee in the amount not to exceed, in the amount of $30,980.
Second.
I think one of the things we've been utilizing as well is we've been taping some of these and putting them up on YouTube. So that's another channel where people can watch.
Yeah, that's a good
if they
idea.
don't attend.
Matt, are you thinking these would be informal or formal meetings, presentations?
I think there'd be kind of a presentation and then an opportunity that's more informal, just to kind of walk around and look at whatever we have to display and ask questions of myself or Kevin, the village engineer, or Kapoor.
Yeah, formal would be good if you're taping it.
Yeah, maybe we could tape that part and then
Yeah.
have a more informal, just come up and ask questions after that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it sounds great. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to construction update for the DPW facility.
All right, I wanted to provide a little update on both the financial and the construction progress on the DPW facility. One, just because it's probably been a while since you've had such an update. And then we do have an action item following that. So I thought having kind of the most up-to-date information would be useful for all of you. So first, just going through kind of where we're at in terms of finances on the DPW facility so far. To date, we've paid about 23.5 million to Moore. We just received a pay app today for about 2.46 million. So that'll bring the total paid to Moore sometime later this week to around $26 million. There'd be approximately $12 million remaining in the project after that. In addition to Moore, we've paid to date about $543,000 to Grafe for the construction admin on that project. Any questions about the financial side?
So we're definitely on budget for sure.
Yep, we're on budget. We're looking good that way. And really the same thing with construction. So the Moore and Grafe are approximating that we're 65% or so complete with construction. They'd set a schedule in November and have been able to hold to that schedule, which is pretty good, going 3-4 months now without having to make any major adjustments. And in fact, because of the weather, they've been able to make some
Good.
moves ahead of schedule, especially when it comes to like siding and roofing and things like that. So there's a number of trades and work that's in progress right now. I think if you haven't seen the facility in a while, so it's important to know that the masonry walls and the interior masonry work is essentially complete. So most of the walls are up. On the interior, carpenters are working on things like door frames, and then we're anticipating that that'll move pretty quickly into finishes like painting. We're expecting interior painting to start sometime in March. There are a few things that we're currently looking at as a team. One is to, we're building this facility to last a long time and have a certain number of staff that will be assigned to the facility immediately, but we need to plan for the future. So we're looking at planning and prepping certain spaces right now that could potentially be built out to serve future staff down the road. We're also looking at network connection options for the facility. When it was originally decided, we were looking at Ethoplex for a wireless network connection to the facility, but have since learned of the availability of AT&T fiber running along Donjas Bay. So we're taking a look at that to see if it's a reasonable alternative to Ethoplex. And then there's a lot of work that's going to be taking place in the next couple months regarding coordinating SCADA and moving the head end out of the current facility and into the new facility without disrupting the communication services on the SCADA network. Coming up in the spring and through the summer, there's going to be a lot of site work and paving going on. A lot of concrete is going to be poured around the building and asphalt. There's going to be coordination with the Donjas Bay Road reconstruction project. And really, I think starting, is it this week or next week, we'll have our first move coordination meeting where we'll pull in other folks from the village and contractors that are needed to kind of work through some of the decisions that need to be made in terms of the actual move. How do we get all of our stuff from where it is now to where it's going? And we're still tracking pretty well for the September 1st planned opening. I did include a few pictures of different elevations of the building. These pictures were probably late January or early February, so there has been some pretty significant progress, and you would notice a difference if you went out there now versus what you're seeing in the picture. One of the interesting ones is the last large concrete pour was done probably 3-4 weeks ago now in the garage area, and you can see that I think in the fourth picture. Yeah, the fourth picture in the slide. It's a huge pour going the full length of the building, and you can see the one similar that was done right next to it. So the floor is all the way in, and like I said, they're moving quickly, building it out in there. The last page, there's a picture of the salt shed and some of the material storage bins. And then the last picture is another interior shot that's kind of in the same garage, looking west at what will be the shops for the different utilities and for streets and parks, as well as the mezzanine area you can see there. And on the other side of those shops, kind of to the south, I guess, would be where the offices are.
Nice.
So that is my update on progress. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Bob?
Questions? So how do we account for the labor, our staff to move from point A to point B? I mean, that takes a lot of time. I've been through moves, box everything up, load everything up. I mean, it takes time.
Yeah, I hinted that, we're trying to move as little as possible. So, when it comes to items that we have in stock in the yard, we're trying to use as much of that, so it doesn't have to move. But there's no doubt that there's going to be some concerted effort, to get stuff from point A to point B. I know, Tim and Scott and Paul are working on trying to get, the basic functions of their job reorganized a little bit in the calendar. So maybe they're starting them a little bit earlier or waiting a little bit longer to open up that window that allows staff more time to conduct some of these moving efforts.
Do we have that budgeted anywhere? I don't think so.
In terms of staff time?
Yeah, that downtime,
No,
just part of the background.
just part of the deal.
Okay. Are the contractors on the Public Works building aware of this impact to their access to the site?
Yes, yeah. Grafe attends all the progress meetings. They're the architect on the job. And like I mentioned, they'll now be doing the construction admin on Donjas Bay Road. So there's a lot of coordination between the two.
Okay. And last question, when is the soft opening
We're hoping,
for your friends?
we're hoping around August 1st that it can more or less be complete, with full open on September 1st.
In August, okay. Would any of the board members have a chance to hop over there and take a look?
Yeah, I think it would be great to have, yeah, it'd be great to set something up where we could get folks over there to kind of take a walk through and get your hard hats on and walk around the facility and take a look at it. It's a lot better now than it was probably a month ago. It was really wet and sloppy out there. But it's dried up okay. And now that the floor is in as well, it's pretty accessible.
Yeah,
So I'd love to figure out a way to take people through there.
you should be escorted, I assume, by you.
Yeah, we would have more along as well.
All right. Yeah, I'd be interested in that.
Okay.
April.
April will be good.
Okay, thank you.
Where are we on the budget, please? How far under budget are we so far?
We're tracking like right on budget. So we're not ahead or behind. The total budgeted amount did decrease just a little bit. It was around 40 million. But because some of the additional work, instead of being added to the project total, was taken out of contingency. So that actually reduced the total amount of the project to just like over 38 million.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions? We can move on to I'm sorry? I think it would have to be totally open before we think about that, so. But yeah, that's,
That's a good idea.
I think it'd be fun. Party. Somebody's got to cut the ribbon. We'll figure it out. Moving on to the actionable item for this is approval of a bid package number 4 for the DPW facility.
All right, so bid package 4 included 12 individual bid items. Essentially, they're all related to demolition or restoration to some degree of the existing Department of Public Works facility. The Moore received 11 bids on 11 of the items for about $604,000. The one item that did not receive a bid was electrical. So in addition to the $604,000, we're asking for an allowance of about $25,000 for the electrical. And then when you add in fees and insurance bonds contingency, that brings the total for bid package 4 to $814,693. And if you look at the sheet that was in the packet, you get an idea of what is going on there. There's a contract for asbestos abatement, a contract for earthwork and demolition, site utilities, roofing, asphalt, concrete, landscaping, and so on. But that's all for work at the existing DPW site.
It's basically taking things apart and
Demolishing,
some, but not everything, obviously.
but not everything. And in some cases, like with roofing, bid item number 4, that's re-roofing the salt shed out there.
So we are going to retain that salt shed out there.
Yes.
Okay. Paving. What's the asphalt paving for out there?
Same, that we'll be doing some repaving around the salt shed.
Okay. Ready? Rob?
All right, this may be a dumb question, and it won't be my last one. But why are we demolishing this building?
I think the thought was that it's, the building has run its useful life. It's an old facility. It probably doesn't hold much value. And instead of hanging on to an old facility.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Yep.
I understand why we need a new DPW, but there may be a buyer out there who could use this shell, this building for whatever use. And instead of us going in there and demolishing, and I don't know if we're getting into environmental issues if we're cleaning that up, but it sounds like we're getting it all ready for a future buyer where there may be a buyer that may take it as is. That's the question. How did we decide that there's no buyer out there that would want this existing building?
Yeah, I wasn't, I have talked to Steve about this, but I wasn't around at the time the decisions were made. But I was kind of getting to the point that, that the facility, it was felt, didn't have a lot of value. And that the Village of Germantown still wants to own that property. And it's actually, like we were talking about a couple of nights ago, one of the properties that is in consideration for future buildings too.
And you never know, not a future building, another ballpark or something, because we own that whole strip, the whole
Yeah.
triangle.
I mean, I don't want a vacant building in disrepair just sitting there easy also, because that doesn't look good.
Right, and that's, I worked in the city of Milwaukee for quite a while, and unfortunately, we had a lot of vacant buildings that continued to deteriorate over time, and you definitely don't want that to be the case. That's bad news.
I'm sure that was looked at in detail prior to me. Okay, thanks.
Me? Questions, motion?
Move approval of bid package number 4 in the amount of $814,693 and the authorization for more construction services to enter in the appropriate contracts for each bid item on behalf of Village of Germantown.
Second.
Further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
1 in opposition. Okay, moving on to the ANR pipeline update.
All right. Much like with the Public Works facility, I wanted to provide an update, and then there's kind of an action item to follow. I don't know how much of this project has been communicated with the committee, if any. But going back to September 19th, 2023, TC Energy, which owns ANR, communicated with then Director of Public Works about the project. And to summarize what it is, it's essentially a regional project that includes a number of different efforts in Wisconsin and Illinois. In the village of Germantown, what it boils down to is some small rerouting of the existing pipeline and then the upsizing of the existing pipe from 14 inches to 30 inches.
Is this
in order-
gas? Is this
Gas,
natural gas?
Yep. And it's, yeah, so we're going, doubling the size of the pipe. And it's called the Wisconsin Reliability Project. And they just cite that the increased demand and then the improved reliability of the new pipe. So in the packet, there is a detail that shows the route of the pipeline. There's an existing pipeline that kind of goes north to south across the western quarter or so of the village, traveling basically north to south. They're going to do a little rerouting kind of along the freeway and then continue back on the line, the same line as the existing utility. So we've been working with ANR in the engineering department for a couple of months now. We have, as of right now, 10 right-of-way permits and 24 temporary driveway permits that are pending our approval. And then we do have one approved access and erosion control permit for some prep work at a site off of Lannon Road. And then since this packet was put together, we actually got an update on the construction schedule, and where we were originally thinking that it would be construction in 2024, we're now being told there's delays, and this will be construction in 2025.
Matt, I mean, technically, or realistically, we have no control over this, correct? It's just we have to help this happen.
Yeah.
That's essentially our role, correct?
Right. And we have the ability, where it's crossing our utilities or, where they're using our right of way to have some control over the matter. But yeah, they're coming through, and this is not our project, but it's something that the committee and residents should be aware of.
Well, we probably have a little more flexibility, unlike the cell towers. Remember those issues? State law prevented us from stopping anything like that. I think we're probably going to see more of this too, because gas and electric are upgrading their facilities throughout a lot of Germantown because we're growing. We're our capacity. So We Energies is doing a lot of upgrading, and gas is following along with that. So we'll probably see more of this.
14 inches to 30 inches. To me, that's just incredible.
That's huge.
Pressurized gas going
Right.
through there is like, boy, let's hope nobody ever hits one of those with a shovel.
I hit a smaller one, and that was scary.
Germantown will be gone. We have to keep that contingency fund up.
That's why I retired early.
Okay, so that was the background. And then the next one, ANR, the approval of the ANR pipeline access easement and agreements.
Yeah, so there's a series of agreements related to allowing them access to a Village of Germantown owned property. This property is kind of near the intersection of Appleton and Lannon. It's a property of ours that holds 3 stormwater ponds. And essentially the pipeline is going to be going through there. So we've set up these temporary easement agreements. These have been reviewed by the village attorney and are deemed appropriate, but will need to be signed by the village. So we're looking to get initial approvals here and take it to the village board. I would say there's one additional page that wasn't in the packet, but I laid out on your desk. So there's a total of 3 agreements that the village will need to sign.
Ready?
Make a motion to approve these agreements. How's that?
Second, because it's so specific.
I have my glasses, I couldn't read it specifically. You get the idea.
I'll second the motion to approve these agreements.
And again, I mean, the reality is this is the amount of control we have just to make sure things go smoothly. I've just a dumb question, which has nothing to do with what we do, but how deep in the ground is this 30-inch gas pipe? Do we have any idea?
To be honest, I don't know. We do have the plans here.
Real deep, I hope.
Kevin, I don't know if you, yeah.
Really?
Usually it's the larger ones get deeper.
3 feet
Typically is.
3 feet down.
for conventional means. Assume that's maybe greater.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Question on the path, which is bizarre now, instead of a straight line, but there's a lot of acquisition that has to go on with that, isn't there, or easement?
A lot of easements. Yeah,
Um,
we're just one little piece of a number of different access agreements and easements that they'll need in order to complete this.
Yeah, and it's going through Merkle Drive, through Homestead Hollow,
Mhm.
on the south side of Homestead Hollow now. Wow, that's just bizarre where it was a straight shot.
Is this the same pipe that they did on Donjas Bay, Pilgrim Road across down Donjas Bay a couple of years ago?
No, this would be different. So if you
No, I
could,
mean, same size, same type project,
that I don't know. I don't know.
was it?
It seems unlikely. This is a big kind of like through like transmission type pipe that goes through the village and beyond. Yep.
Tim had mentioned that it was 9,
Yeah, that one's alive, I think. That's-
just to clarify the depths from the previous project that was in the village, it's 9 to 12 feet for the depths.
Oh, that's deep, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right, that, like, for a project like in Donjas Bay Road, if we're, looking at an 8-inch or a 12-inch gas main with doing utility coordination, the conventional depth would typically be 3 to 4 feet.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Any more questions? Discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. And that takes care of all new business, and we'll move on to the director's update report.
All right, so this is my second attempt at a report, just to give you a snapshot of what we're working on in the department, and the types of coordination and calls that we're receiving. So just kind of going down, I'll just make some quick comments and then take any questions. We do have the 2024 road program live on Quest. So we're hoping to be able to take the results of that bid to the special Public Works meeting on the 18th and get started on that work for the summer.
Kevin, just to clarify, or not Kevin, Matt, sorry. The public can't access Quest, that's for contractors.
That's just for contractors.
So you're just indicating that it's in that.
It's in the system, it's live, so contractors have the ability to pull it down and look at it and bid.
And the green items are your hot items, right? Priorities.
They're the ones, yeah, that I plan on discussing.
Thanks.
Yep. And then just moving down the list, Donjas Bay Road, we've talked about that, but we're anticipating that'll move on to Village Board, and now it will after tonight, and get awarded on the 18th. And we can begin that work. Again, that's important because of the timing with the Public Works facility as well. Moving down the line, Jake, our engineering tech, is working now on our seal coating bid package. We're hoping that in another week or two here, we can get that bid out as well and award sometime potentially March or early April, to keep that just behind the road program.
Can I ask questions as we're going through?
Sure, go right ahead. Bye.
Yeah, just a quick one on that seal coating. What's your outreach to the public on that? Because that requires a lot of coordination ahead of time, so people aren't driving through this nice, fresh asphalt seal coat and doing that to their driveways.
Yeah, it'll include letters, and this is the same with the road program, going out to impacted residents, as well as coordination, leading up to it. So, that, 48 hours or so in advance that they're going to be going through your road and you have the opportunity to kind of prepare yourself for that. And then we'll be using other means like social media and that sort of thing to communicate, as well as the website.
I'm not sure what type of material we're using this time, but how soon after it's applied can the residents drive on that road?
We're doing a range of different applications. We're using the GSB 88. We've got a couple microsurface projects, and then we've got a couple chip seals as well. So they're all pretty quick after. The exact timing,
4-ish hours? Okay. Thank you.
all right. Moving down to Water Superintendent Paul, I wanted to talk about well 12 briefly. 2 years ago when the well was drilled, there wasn't a PFAS testing requirement. And now there is, so we had to go in and do that test. The good news is that there's no issues with PFAS, but when they did the testing, there was a reduction in the production of the well, based on what they saw a couple years ago when it was drilled. And what happened there is that opening it up to oxygen just created a lot of biofilm throughout the system. And now we feel that well 12 will need to go through a chemical treatment, a rehab, in order to bring it back up to the production level that we saw a couple years ago when it was drilled. So there's going to be an additional cost to that treatment that will probably come back through the committee and the board at some point. The timing isn't critical because we've kind of got a long way to go, a year or so with the construction of the well house. But at some point between now and then, we will have to do that chemical treatment in the rehab.
Painting of that water tower, are we still on track?
Tower 4 in the same location?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got the construction schedule today. And it's, if I remember right, I just looked at it briefly, but it was about a 9-month thing. But they're mobilizing starting here in the next couple of weeks and starting to put it together.
Painting, he said.
Oh, Tower 3?
3 is at the,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it was approved, wasn't it?
Yeah, that contract was awarded. I don't remember the schedule off the top of my head, but that's planned for this summer. And I don't think there's any issues with keeping that timeline. Moving down the list to wastewater, we have nearly completed the residential lateral replacement project. Just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that there is one resident at the address listed there that's claiming some damage to their basement as a result of the project. And we're working through the contractor's insurance in order to inspect and make a determination and eventually resolve that. And flipping the page, we talked a lot about trees last time, so I don't want to talk too much about trees this time. But we are working on the comprehensive tree plan. Scott's working with Wachtell and coming up with some recommendations, and then we'll bring that back as a package to a future committee to evaluate. And then moving all the way down, I just wanted to mention a couple things in my department update. We are working to fill some vacancies in the engineering department. As of a couple days ago, I would have told you we had some pretty light number of applications for these positions, but we did have a couple come in. So we'll be conducting at least one interview Friday of this week and hopefully another one soon. So if those go well, there's the potential that we'll have some additional staff on board in the engineering department. The water utility did make a hire, which is good news. So they're back up to full staff. We are still looking for an operator in the wastewater and then a mechanic in the highway department as well. And kind of related to all that, we're working with Aaron and Steve on the impact that the new CDL requirements have had on our ability to hire. What's changed is that in order to get your CDL now, you have to go through a classroom type course that can cost several $1,000s, which prohibits people from entering those classes. But then once they do enter them and go through, they're qualified for much higher paying jobs than our positions offer. So we're looking for ways that we can potentially pay for some of that training and then keep them on board through some sort of agreement for a period of time to get some return on the investment there. It's possible that you would lose them at some point down the road, but I think we have to be creative in trying to figure out ways to get CDL licensed drivers working for us. And then the last thing I was going to mention is kind of our summary of calls and complaints. February was the first month where we used the new spreadsheet that Deb is in every day, multiple times a day, now categorizing the types of calls that come in. So you can see some of the results of that there. It's not perfect yet, and we had to use probably a little more like miscellaneous type categorization than we wanted to, but it does give you a decent snapshot of the types of calls that are coming in and the topics that they're about.
3 dead animals.
3 dead animals.
Just a quick, it's on the agenda, so I'm just going to ask the question. Who picks up the dead animals?
It's a contracted service that
The
is
county, right? Isn't it, or is it village?
it's with the
Village?
village and I think run through the police department.
Same one.
We have to,
Same.
same one? Yeah, we have to, there's a dead deer, it's been there decomposing on the corner, on his parents' property now for about 2 weeks. I look at that thing.
Hmm.
So, but yeah,
They're longer than that.
yeah. But anyway, just thought I'd ask.
So that was all I was going to touch on, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about anything else on the report.
I just have one more animal question, as long as we're talking about animals. Animals we hope are dead are the crayfish, crayfish, way before your time.
Uh-huh.
But we might want to check with the DNR and see if the crayfish issue is over with now for Germantown. Because that's the way we filled in the pond behind the library, because crayfish were invasive species coming, invading all the ponds in that area. So that goes back probably about 8 years, no? Yeah. And then up to about 2 years ago, there was a talk of beavers near Sundex. I got to see a
Definitely
beaver.
beavers around. That's reality.
You'd think we'd be having trees felled if there were beavers on.
I was actually at a residence there in February, beginning of February, and it looks like the beaver dams are gone.
Yeah.
Those were trapped and
Quick muscle.
moved. No, they were beavers.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So all the
They
beavers
trapped
are
them
gone.
and eradicated them.
Okay, I just was curious as to whether, because we had a beaver guy who would be paid a beaver allowance to come and trap the beavers and get them out of here. And I was just curious, because then that just kind of died down, like, are they really gone? I guess was my question. Crayfish, are they really gone? And are the beavers really gone?
Those crayfish, I think they were like called a red crayfish.
Yeah,
They were from Mississippi or something like that.
yeah, nobody, well, but anyway,
Invasive.
I'm not sure about the crayfish. I haven't heard about that one. I'll play my new guy card again. I told you I'd be able to do that. The beavers, though, I mean, I don't think you'll ever get rid of them.
Really?
Yeah, they're around, and there's a lot of wet, woody area here. They're going to continue to be around.
I'm just so amazed by that. Yeah, okay. I just was curious, because we didn't have the wildlife update for a while, whether or not it was still an issue or not. And and what the library planned to do, because I don't know if they ever plan on reopening a pond or just leave it the way it is, or, but anyway, okay, enough of that. Okay, any other comments on the report, on the updates?
Yep. When calls come to us, we're just recording kind of any calls that come in, but you do actually call like non-emergency police for those calls.
They'll probably want pictures and stuff, just kidding. Okay, okay, that's the director's report. Let's set a next meeting date. And this is going to be, we have a choice here. Now, the first week of April, of course, is election on Tuesday, and we've moved village board to Thursday, the 4th. Do we want to flip our meeting to the 10th? Or do you want to keep it on the 3rd and do the 2 nights in a row? Okay, how about everybody else? Would the 10th be okay?
Yeah.
Then we'll do the 10th if that's okay at 5:30.
Okay.
And that way, okay, yeah, I think Wednesdays aren't usually that bad, are they? Okay, well, hopefully it is. And if it's not, just let us know and we'll think of something. Okay? Okay, no other announcements, I presume, from committee? No? Or from you, Matt? No? At that, we will adjourn here at 6:51 PM. Thank you.
Yes.